So now, on behalf of myself and John, I'd like to talk to you about the pathway, how we got to CMIP7, and update you on the latest status of where we are. And I'd like to really acknowledge the support of the CMIP panels, both the core panel and the extended panel, the WIP, the infrastructure panel, all the task teams, our Fresh Eyes on CMIP activity, and of course the CMIP IPO. So I'll talk a bit about why we needed CMIP7. So first of all, just for a bit of historical context, I think, you know, as many people are aware, CMIP7 hasn't arisen from nowhere. CMIP has a long history going back to the late 1980s when the first AMIP, atmospheric model into comparison projects began. Going back to the first IPCC assessment report, when we had early couple model results from GFDL, followed by other modelling centres. The working group on coupled modelling initiated the first CMIP exercise. And as we've gone through the CMIP exercises, we've seen the number of components in the climate models increase, the complexity increase, the size of the multi-model ensemble and the number of participants increase, and increases somewhat in resolution as well. So CMIP6, the latest phase, was the largest phase, and in that we saw again more models, increased complexity. There were in CMIP6 24 endorsed model into comparison projects, with contributions from 25 countries, with over 130 models and 322 experiments. This led to nearly 25 petabytes of CMIP6 data, which was hosted on over 30 data nodes of the Earth System Grid Federation all around the world. And CMIP6 had a really big impact on the sixth assessment report of IPCC. It appears in, the data from CMIP appears in many of the figures from that report, particularly in Working Group 1. And so many thanks, take this opportunity to say many thanks to Veronica Eyring for her work in leading CMIP6. Now, Veronica did an amazing job without an international project office, and John and I both reflected before he had to go back on how grateful we are for the IPO. The IPO was established as a result of a resolution which was passed at WMO back in 2019, where it was asked to institutionalise key elements of CMIP, and that led to a call to host an international project office. ESA was selected as the host institution, and for which we are really grateful for their support. And the IPO was launched then in March 2022, and they're located in the UK. And I'm sure many of you here have worked with CMIP, and I don't think any of us could emphasise enough what a critical role they play in the support and engagement in our community to further the science objectives of CMIP. So when John and I became co-chairs in late 2022, early 2023, we really went through a period of reflection about whether we needed another phase of CMIP. And we started that reflection by looking at the high-level science objectives of WCRP to really understand if we still had an important role to play. So there are 4 high-level objectives. The first is fundamental understanding of the climate system. And for example, there are still many outstanding questions on the equilibrium climate sensitivity, and models still have an important role to play in understanding this moving forwards, looking again at observations and other constraints. The second objective is about prediction of the near-term evolution of the climate system. And many of the experiments in CMIP, for example, looking at the role of aerosols and the regional impact on climate change are important there. Thirdly, is looking at the long-term response of the climate system. I actually worked on this figure in the IPCC 6th Assessment Report, along with Baylor, Fox, Kemper and others. And so I know myself how important CMIP is, both to what we did then, but moving forwards, particularly in the scenarios and the extensions of those scenarios out beyond 2100. And so even looking past the 6th assessment report, we still see that there's an appetite within the IPCC assessments and other national climate assessments for ongoing information on future and past climate. So CMIP really has an ongoing role to play there at bridging climate science and society. And as Tim has mentioned, an important role to facilitate also with Cordex. So overall, there are many reasons why we decided that we did need CMIP7. I've mentioned many of these, delivery to IPCC and climate services, process understanding, understanding uncertainty, characterizing model behavior, looking at black swan events that could happen but we've never seen in the historical record, but also looking at high priority science questions that remain outstanding. And so while we were planning the CMIP7 phase, we had a meeting of the CMIP panel where 4 key science questions emerged. The first is about patterns of sea surface change and how tropical ocean temperature patterns will co-evolve with those at higher latitudes. The second is about changing weather and how will dangerous weather patterns evolve. The third is about the water, carbon, climate nexus and how the Earth will respond to human efforts to manage the carbon cycle. And the fourth is about tipping points and looking at the risks of triggering irreversible changes across possible climate trajectories. And when we discussed these with the panel, we felt that the next generation of Earth system models would be able to make contributions to answering these science questions. And you can see more details in the paper led by John in the CMIP7 special issue of Geoscientific Model Development. So what is our vision for CMIP7? So the first part of this vision is to provide a streamlined request to contribute to climate assessments, something which is manageable on tight timelines for the modelling centres to deliver. Secondly, to maintain the infrastructure which allows broad science investigations via model intercomparison projects. Thirdly, to address the CMIP7 science questions which I've outlined. Then to provide a comprehensive framework for systematic model characterization, attribution and process understanding. And finally, we had the ambition and vision for this phase to really broaden participation in CMIP activities. So, to enable this is where CMIP sits in the WCRP family. We're part of the Earth System Model and Observations core project. The CMIP IPO, as I've said, is critical to our work, supporting both the CMIP panel, looking at experimental design and associated requirements, and the WIP panel, looking and driving the data infrastructure. We have the Fresh Eyes on CMIP activity, engaging the next generation. We have many CMIP7 task teams which have helped to drive forward the definition of CMIP7. And to enable this, we've worked across a whole range of users and stakeholders, the forcing data set providers, model into comparison projects, the data nodes, the modeling centers, working with the impacts and adaptation community, with EasyMIP, with Scenario MIP, with the Earth System Grid Federation, with policymakers and funders. So there is been so much involved in this phase of CMIP7. So this is how we envisage the experimental design now. I'm sure many of you have already seen this picture before. But the central idea is that we continue to have the DEC experiments. This is where the models are benchmarked and we understand how they perform and characterize them in many ways. We, as part of that, to allow understanding of the historical period, we hope to have more regular updates of the external climate forcings, and there's more to come on that this week. We want to continue to support the community MIPs from a bottom-up sense. But new to CMIP7 is this idea of having fast-track sets of experiments. And the first fast track is the assessment fast track, which is designed to meet the needs of IPCC AR7 and other national and international policy assessments. So these are the experiments in the assessment fast track. I don't need to go into these here because in a keynote talk coming up, Isla Simpson, who led the task team, co-led the task team which developed this, will explain this in detail. But the key point to take away here is that the fast track is split into largely two parts. One on prediction and projection, looking at decadal prediction and future scenarios, with 7 scenarios into the future, to 2100 and extensions beyond to 2500. And then a whole set of experiments on the other side which allow that process understanding, covering both attribution and characterization. And all of these experiments, I should say, map to at least one of the science questions that the panel identified. So in terms of broadening participation, you can see here in red countries where we have people, members involved in CMIP activities, in green where there are modelling centres or data infrastructure centres. But I hope the message you can take away from this is that we now have contributions to CMIP from many countries around the globe, both in the global south and the global north. One of the activities that has really excited me in CMIP7 has been Fresh Eyes on CMIP activity, and I'm really pleased to be the member on the panel who gets to liaise with this group. So this is a working group of over 200 scientists, researchers, practitioners early in their careers. We've been able to directly integrate their voices into CMIP through their participation in the CMIP panel, the WIP, and the task team meetings. And they really have provided invaluable insight into the generation, access, analysis of CMIP data and other activities across WCRP. And I hope you hear much more about the Fresh Eyes on CMIP activity during this week. So that was the vision and how we got to CMIP7. Now I'll give you an update on where we are. So this is the timeline. So we've been looking at this for the last 2 years or so, and we're looking at it out to the future. So the workshop is right in the middle of this timeline, as you can see. So everything on your left has been an amazing amount of work by the panel and the task teams in particular, and the WIP. So, you know, we've been working on the experiment selection, the design of the experiments, The historical forcings have been developed, and there's a special issue, another special issue in geoscientific model development describing many of those data sets themselves. There's been a very wide consultation on the scenarios, and they have been endorsed by the WCRP Joint Scientific Committee, and that's led to scenarios with the integrated assessment models. There's been a new data request which has been harmonised for the assessment fast track, and there has been a lot of work on the CMIP7 infrastructure and the next generation of the Earth System Grid Federation. We're now at the point where the modelling centres are starting the assessment fast track runs. This will then be uploaded onto the Earth System Grid Federation. We have had much work going on developing the rapid evaluation framework, and once the data is uploaded, we hope to see very rapid results from CMIP appear from that. As I said, we've been working a lot with other communities. So we've been working with Cordex and with the impact modelling community and EasyMIP and the ice sheet modelling community, ISMIP7, to understand their requirements. So as soon as the CMIP7 assessment fast track runs are completed or even underway, we can move very rapidly into those downstream activities to further support IPCC. And so we hope this timeline, with very rapid analysis, once the data is available, will meet the deadlines for the IPCC 7th assessment report. So where are we with some of the key aspects to this? So the historical forcings, I hope all the modelling centres are well aware that all the forcing data sets required for the DEC experiments, which now includes the historical period, are available, and they're already being used in production simulations. Of course, there are hiccups along the way, and we had one with the ozone, but that was identified, and we sent out the recommendations on how to deal with that to the modelling centres. I'd encourage you to look at the GitHub where the dataset details are discussed, and if you want more information, please look at that QR code. So just as a reassurance that the historical data does look okay, this is a figure that John put together from GFDL and from NCAR. And you can see the historical simulations in red on both cases for the CMIP7 compared with the previous CMIP6 forcings. And you can see that it looks like nothing is amiss. And if anything, perhaps there's some indication that the earlier period has slightly improved. So, we look forward to seeing a wide analysis of that across all the models. So the future scenario forcing, as I said, the choice of scenarios was endorsed by the Joint Scientific Committee. There are 7 scenarios, which is, quite a big ask, not just for the modelling centres, but also for the forcing providers. So to alleviate this, the CMIP, myself and John met with Scenario MIP, with EasyMIP, with ISMIP7 and Cordex to gather preferences for the scenarios so that we could create a running order for when they would be produced and what we would recommend the running order to the modelling centres. So to allow the delivery, we had the high and the very low as the first experiments. Many of those forcing data sets are now available, with a few more to come. Hopefully by the end of this month. The next ones to come will be the medium and the high-low, and we will hear more about the details on the CMIP7 scenario shortly. Just as a footnote, I would if people are worried about using these, because there has been some embargo on Scenario Explorer itself, there is no limitation to the use of the scenario forcing data or the output from the models on ESGF. So I'd just like to say about the infrastructure, you know, before I was co-chair, I might not have realised quite how much work goes into the infrastructure. And, you know, massive thanks to Matt Mislinski and James for their work and the whole of the WIP. There are key components to the infrastructure. This includes the data request, the controlled vocabularies. The registration for the essential model documentation is now available. We expect the publication on ESGF to be possible from early May. And as Eleanor said, there's a help desk in room B2 this week for the infrastructure, and there's also a side event tomorrow. So please go along and ask your questions and understand, you know, what's gone into all of this. So our goals for CMIP7, hopefully you're here so you know what the overall goals are, to bring together our community, to discuss the latest developments, to look at how we move even beyond CMIP7 into delivering sustained information for users, and really to provide these opportunities for networking, collaboration, and foster new partnerships in the community across all career stages. John and I reflected on what we wanted to come out at the end of this week. We want to be able to evaluate the recent progress in coupled modelling to comparison, the initial status of the coming ensemble, identify some of the logistical obstacles for the modelling centres, evaluate progress on our science goals, maybe identify emerging science challenges. So, for example, in Barcelona, that was when the hot model issue emerged. We, as I said, hope to make progress on our vision for the future and identify new opportunities in coupled modelling, you know, and noting that the working group in coupled modelling has a forum on that topic as well. So there are 3 workshop themes. The first is on progress in understanding historical climate variability and change, looking at model performance, characterisation, the REF, using observations. The second on understanding climate system responses, feedbacks, thresholds, covering those 4 key science questions, as well as uncertainty, quantification and impacts. And the third theme on synthesizing information across this multiverse of models that we now have. How do we make the data accessible? What do we see from models at high resolution? And new emerging things on AI and machine learning, emulators, impacts and extremes. And so to do this, we have 2 theme leads for each theme. So for theme 1, we have Julia Blaster and Masa Kagiyama. For theme 2, we have Frederic Bonu and Robert Pincus. For theme 3, we have James Anstey and Jesus Fernandez. And so I would ask people, if you're a convener and if you know, and hopefully you do, which theme you are under, if you could make yourself known to those theme leads, that would help them a lot to bring it all together, because we are asking them to give a reflection on the theme at the end of the week. So thank you to all of you for taking on that role. So finally, we have a workshop survey, so please help everybody by providing responses to this before before 4 o'clock on Thursday. We do many surveys in CMIP, but please be assured we always look at your what you say, so nothing is lost. So please do take advantage of that. So with that, just to say a big thank you to everyone, and I really mean everyone, who makes CMIP possible.